They turn it around! G2 are losing! G2 are losing! Yanko's not 100% on the same page. Sniped by Carzzy. Looking at Mickey. Look at the color of Humanoid. Look at, he bounces! They almost got the kill! It's not enough, man, Lions! Shadow, still not down. He's going to choose to work with. They've done it. They've done it! It's the Mad Lions! They have unseated the champions! They have killed the kings! The rookies have risen up!
He instantly gets shredded through, and there's Finn. All that gold paying off. Massive fight in favor of Rogue. Oh, they've just gotten into the meat grinder. Rogue has set it up so beautifully. Just let him die! And here we go! Rogue looking to end this series and face Origin next week.
Breath, the Call of Forge got coming out as well, but Nemesis puts up the wind wall. He's surviving. Nukeduck has to flash away. Nukeduck caught underneath the tower. Nemesis alive, and Fnatic 2-0 up the kill. Wow. Xerxes flashes forward, and the explosive cast find its mark, and now Upset can unleash hell. Oh, a great hook from Destiny stops Upset from getting caught out. Now he's able to flash, but Bwipo able to land the final Darking Blade, and now this is an awful fight for Origin. Another good hook comes out from Destiny.
This does mean that Rogue will face off against Origin, two teams that I think have a very similar stylistic play. That should be a very interesting match.
Everyone thought that G2 was going to 3-0.
The question is this iteration of G2 better than 2019?
Out of the 4 teams we've seen over the last 2 days, I think Fnatic stand head and shoulders above everyone else right now.
They will get to go up against Mad Lions. That's definitely not what everyone was expecting.
Oh, Mad Fnatic is going to be a really fun one. I do still think it is going to be Fnatic-sided.
Mad are doing it. Mad are in the lead. They are playing the game right. Bauer comes out, spit back, punch him in the face.
Bwipo joins the fray. Call of the Forge God lands onto Nukeduck. He's almost dead, but he manages to head into the bush for the second. Bwipo takes him. Xerxes still alive. Upset caught up in the last invest in Fnatic, and now turning this fight around.
It is taking out B-Boy. Misfits, they're falling apart. They've got nothing left in the tank.
This has turned from a playoffs of almost certainty that we'd have the same champion into a wide open playoff bracket. Every single team should take a long, hard look at themselves and see what kind of an opportunity they have here. Welcome back, everyone, to round 2 of the LEC Spring Playoffs, coming to you live from a remote location. Mysterious, but nonetheless, you know who we are. My name is Shox, and I'm joined here by my analyst, Yamato Cannon, and Vedius to get into this spicy best of 5.
Guten Tag.
Hello, would help if I unmuted my microphone.
Yes, it would. What were you saying? Was it important, or can we move on?
We can move on. Let's get into it, Shox.
Great, that's what I like. In any case, let's get into it, and let's start by looking back a little bit to yesterday, of course, that all-important direct elimination best of 5 between Origin and Rogue, and in the end, Origin made it through 3-1.
If I would say it was a wild one, I would be a big liar, because it was quite a calm one. The first game took everyone by storm, so to speak, because Rogue came up with the big upset win. Origin kind of stepped back up. They figured out the way they needed to draft. They showed some cards that they wanted to hide towards G2. Alphari and Xerxes definitely stepping up and showing why they are better than their counterparts.
I think we got to see a slightly different Origin, along with seeing the same Origin. The first 2 games were honestly quite slow and boring. I think everyone was very aware of that, but as the series progressed, I feel like we got to see a bit of a return to form from the old Origin. A reminder to last year in the beginning of this split, where they were playing much more of a 1-3-1 style, giving a lot more agency over to Nukeduck in a side lane. I think opening up the map made them a lot more aggressive and gave them a lot more options to play the game, and it's nice to see this because when Origin relied on this team fight style, especially against the likes of Fnatic, it wasn't working. So by diversifying and kind of going back to what worked for them in the past, I think is something that we can look forward to as they go up against G2 tomorrow.
Yes, and one player who played his heart out, as he always does for Origin, was Alphari. We put a lot of stock into that top lane matchup of Finn versus Alphari, but honestly, Finn was not having a good day. Let's just put it that way. Alphari outplayed him, and with that also outplayed Rogue.
I was really impressed with how Alphari continued to dominate in the laning phase, but then further extended that later on into the team fights. The way he was consistently able to find effective flanks onto the backline, always shutting down those primary carries, was crucial in order to allow Origin to win out in the end.
I think the matchup in itself that he played, where he really popped off as Aatrox, that was into an Ornn, and he still managed to find ways to be more useful in the late game, and I think that just speaks so much to how much better he was in this particular matchup.
Great game from him once again. That does mean we're going to say goodbye to Rogue for this spring split. This was an elimination match. Yamato, if you would summarize the growth or lack thereof, I don't know where you want to go, for Rogue this spring season, where would you land?
Honestly, I think with the trajectory they built and the hype they built through last year, I think it's been quite disappointing because we expected them to be top 4 minimum, we expected them to grow more, but I feel like they've stagnated in the second half. We had some rough games, and the Aurelia games that really stick into my mind. I think this is a Rogue lineup that definitely kind of reached its peak, but not necessarily because of the players. Maybe it's the coaching staff too. I just feel like this team needs like a higher level of gameplay added to it, because I think it's really, really basic and they're trying to be what OG is, but I think OG just have better caliber players, so you're not going to get ahead in this regard.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Yamato, because when I think back to last year's Summer Split Rogue, I feel like I'm looking at the same team. And with the introduction of Hansama, my expectations were that this team would be elevated, that they'd be able to challenge the top 3, but I don't think we've seen a huge amount of growth from this team, and I think that, as Yamato mentioned, we've seen this stagnation from them, so I hope there's some kind of change. Where it comes from is heavily up to debate, and I hope Rogue can figure it out, but if they keep things the way that they currently are, I think they're just going to continue to stay where they currently are.
Well, there is precedent, of course. One of the teams who isn't in playoffs, XL, already announced that they will be making changes in the top and the mid lane coming into summer, so maybe we'll see the same rather. For Rogue, we'll have to check in with them as summer starts, but we are still in the heat of the moment here in the spring split, and after OG's victory, that now means that they get to go up against G2 Esports on Sunday. Now, as a reminder for both G2 and OG, if they win this match, they still have to go up against the loser of Fnatic versus Mad to make it to the final. But with the information we have from both G2 and OG so far, what is this looking like?
Honestly, it's so hard to predict what kind of G2 we will get. Maybe they're angry, maybe they're going to continue playing the same way, but things that I know for sure is that I think Mad Lions definitely played in a way that forced mistakes out of G2 and really, really punished them when they happened. I think G2 has been making silly mistakes maybe throughout the season. Sometimes they get caught on side lanes, and in those cases it hasn't mattered as much. Sure, now I make the contrast between Mad Lions and OG. I feel like Mad Lions really took it to G2 and really forced those mistakes out, and I can't imagine a world where OG can do the same. And at the same time, we might have a really, really angry G2, we might have a tilted G2, who knows, because after that best of 5, it just spawned more questions.
For me, I'm looking at this series and wondering, was the first best of 5 an anomaly, or should it be what we come to expect from G2 now? Was this just an underperformance, a poor best of 5, where they played their first series in an online environment and they couldn't quite find their rhythm and they'll get back to their regular season performance? Or were there a lot of mistakes during the regular season that kind of slid under the radar just because of how dominant they were in terms of their skirmishing and actual activity and fighting in the early game? And I think that it's more to be with the anomaly, and I expect them to return to form when they play against Origin tomorrow, but we still have to wait and see, because when it comes to G2, you never really know which G2 is going to show up on the day.
Yeah, that is true, but there's a lot of questions. Also, how good is OG going to be? But before we move on, I'd like to look at the bracket just once more and kind of call back to what I said last week. The fact that this is such a bracket of opportunity for the teams remaining. Some of them are already in their second chance. Some of them are still riding high with Mad and Fnatic in that upper bracket. But it does seem like it is absolutely wide open to take that trophy home.
What I think is crazy about our bracket is not only is Mad guaranteed to be top 3, they have the potential to secure finals today, but also top 3 from the regular season, someone's got to go out tomorrow. It's either OG or it's G2, and one of them will finish this split in 4th place, which to me is just absolutely ridiculous.
And I love the changes to the whole point system coming into summer, how important these points are going to be for seeding, because if you have the top seeds, all of a sudden you're one best of 5 away from reaching the World Championship already in, you know, summer playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And how amazing and how crazy would it be if the Mad Lions get to Worlds in their first year? But it wouldn't be the first time. Of course, we have a very big tradition, rather, of rookies here in Europe getting to that highest level. And I think we very often highlight these rookies. And it's not as simple as every rookie that comes in does well. But there is this layer of rookies that goes above and beyond. And we've seen it now almost every single year.
Honestly, it takes me back to 2016, Perk's rookie year. They won 2 splits in a row. Splice, I was on that roster. 5 rookies, it was Mickey, it was Wonder, it was all across the board. Coming into the next year, we had the Misfits roster that took, of course, SK Telecom to 5 games. That was absolutely nuts, and it was an inspiration for all of us. Next in line, you know, looking at the best of 5, you kind of think about it and how close it was. It was like 1 engage away from them dethroning.
Don't bring it up.
It was absolutely nuts. But of course, the inspiration carried on. 2018, we have Vitality. You know, back then we beat Genji, former world champion. RNG was looking like the favorite. It was also a very crazy year for us, and it continues and it continues, and it brings us to today. You know, today we had Rogue last year with the. You know, I don't know if Rogue fits the bill here, but let's just talk about them a little bit because they're in the B-roll. I want to focus on Mad Lions because I think they are the up-and-comers. They've kind of taken that spotlight away from Rogue. I feel like Mad Lions is the team that Rogue wants to be because they are the upcoming rookies that are going to make a splash for the remainder of this year.
I think what's really interesting is that we as Europe have had rookie teams make it to finals before. I think Splice is a great example. Misfits is another one where they've had that opportunity to challenge the top dog. But very rarely in Europe have we ever had 2 or 3 top dogs at the same time. And the fact that a team like Mad Lions was able to take down G2 just goes to show how much growth our rookies are making year on year. Because in the past, you wouldn't expect an informed G2 and Fnatic to exist at the same time, but now they do. And our rookies are even then overcoming those hurdles and challenging the best. And that only sets us up perfectly for the rest of the year and the future of Europe as more rookies continue to fill our league and aim for higher highs.
Yeah, true. And you, yourself at home, you can scout the new generation of possibly LEC rookies. In EU Masters, they just concluded their play-in stage, but the group stage will kick off at the 22nd of April. So there we go. So much talk about rookies because we're going to see a rookie team in action, the Mad Lions, who have done the unthinkable so far, but they're going to try and doing it once again as Mad go up against Fnatic.
Look at the color from Humanoid. He's got 1. He's got 2. G2 are losing. G2 are losing. Where were you? The rookies of Europe have taken down the world finalists. Mad Lions have defeated G2.
G2 and Fnatic have been dominating Europe for like the past 3 or 4 years, but I think it's my time to end their legacy.
Already almost down, he gets caught out and now upsets the next target, they're just dead. Origin can't do anything about this, they just get swept off the map.
Their top laner tends to play weak side a lot, which is something I profit from a lot. I'm not too worried about playing a team like Mad Lions.
Oh, well, not too scared about playing a team like Team Lions. Team Lions. Team Lions. Mad Lions. Maybe also what G2 thought before facing them. So hopefully Fnatic has a better plan in mind. It is EU's newest team versus EU's most winning team in Europe's history. And Fnatic, well, they looked like an extremely convincing title contender in their round 1 matchup.
And I mean, we also have to look at the split for Fnatic, because coming into this year, I think everyone looked at the addition of Selfmade and said, this is an improvement, this is going to make the team better, and it has. Fnatic have sat in second place for pretty much the entirety of the split, and they even had extremely close games against G2, so we've seen this team progressively get better and better and better, and then against Origin in their best of 5, they looked very convincing. So now, with the future ahead of them, with who their opponents are and what looks like to be a road, this is Fnatic's prime opportunity to reclaim the title and put G2 back in their place.
There we go. Yeah, when we look at that bracket, it is exactly that. Fnatic's tournament to win and also to lose, possibly. A chance for them to get that trophy back. But we're up, or they're up rather. Oh my god, I'm gonna get so many biased comments. It was just a slip of the tongue, guys. They are up, these guys, against Mad Lions, and the Mad Lions have shown so much already versus G2. Would you call it the biggest upset in LEC history, Yamato? And what did you think of their performance?
For sure. I can't think of anything that comes close. They beat G2 looking like the favorite coming into the tournament. Mad Lions have set the precedent for future generation of Mad Lions rosters, because in all honesty, this is such a good foot to start on. Your first split, all of a sudden you beat G2. That was always the question in everyone's mind. When is it going to happen? It's inevitable that this G2 roster is going to lose the best of 5 at some point in time, but I really didn't think it would happen against a full rookie roster in their first split. It's just an amazing story. They're going to have a lot of big shoes to fill for the future generations to come.
And the impressive thing about how it was done was that every single member was pulling their weight. It wasn't like a single star shone above the rest. Every single player had their moments, had their opportunities. But if we had to pick a player that was making those standout moments, we have to talk about Shadow in the jungle. His Olaf performance in Game 5, you just saw it on your screen, was monstrous. He was picking up so many kills, and his impact across the board was huge. Going up against Selfmade today, a lot of eyes are going to be on him and how he stacks up against the second best jungler that we have in our league, because he's already put the best jungler in his place.
Absolutely. So fantastic performance from each of them. And I think one of the teams that adapted to best to the online situation we find ourselves in. And before, we weren't exactly sure of how it would influence things, but players have come out and said it definitely influences things. And they rose to the challenge. But the big question is, can they do it again? Or was it a flash in the pan? And one man that has a lot on his plate and is going to try and replicate that success versus G2 Esports is, of course, their coach, Mac. He won Coach of the Split, and it is such a difficult one to vote for, because how can we really know what is happening behind the scenes? But Yamato, you said last week, well, you have to look at what they have to work with and what they do with that group of players. And I think this is a clear example of something that went extremely well.
I think it's like an episode of Top Chef, you get a pair of ingredients and you see what you can make. I think in this case, we just look at the roster, we look at the potential and what the expectations are. I feel like Mad Lions really exceeded those expectations. They took the 4th place position at the end of the split. They kept growing in a strong fashion. The trajectory was good. The way they were winning games was always explosive and exciting, and in a way where they could challenge the best of the best. They took games from G2, Fnatic, and also the last one, Origin, out of the top 3. I think there is argument to be made for others, but it's all about the potential. I know there's mentions of, for example, Mythy and the drafts, but then again, we don't know anything that's going on. For all I know, Mac was, chopping salads and that's it, and he fed that to his players, who knows? Also important, sure, but coach of the split worthy? No idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, we also know that a vote for a coach of the split is also a vote for the support system behind him. Yes. I think we can't forget to talk about that. And the proof is in the pudding for Mad Lions so far. The project has been working out. But as said, they have a huge test ahead of them as they go up against Fnatic for a spot in the LEC Spring Split Finals. So let's dive into how these teams play, how these teams win, and possibly lose games. Starting with Fnatic, where I think the key word is that they are diverse and decisive.
Well, the first thing we have to mention is that this Fnatic reminds us a lot of 2019 G2, where it feels like they have extremely deep champion pools. It feels like that they have a wide array of styles. They can play through any single lane. You can have carry performances across the board, and it just feels like they've kind of got all of the pieces that they need to replicate G2's success from last year. And to be able to see that, to be able to see another team replicate that style and emulate, and also add their own flair to it, because you only have to look at some of the champions and you can see some very unique stuff. The Zac in the top lane, we saw the Zilean in the bot lane as well, and you've also got to mention both of those things can be flexed. Like, that Zac can also be playing support. For all we know, Bwipo's been practicing Zilean top as well. Like, the amount of champions that they play in this is what I call the Fnatic flair onto the G2 style, where they don't try and copy exactly what G2 did. They try to take images of it from last year and they make it into their own.
I think also on top of that, I think the key players here are of course Bwipo and Hylissang. I think they are the ones that bring out the crazy picks most of the time, because, you know, in the same fashion they play the game, they find crazy opportunities, crazy engages, crazy flanks, crazy ganks all over the place, the same way they find these opportunities in champions. And I think these are two players that really need the trust and the benefit of the doubt from their team, and that is where they succeed. And I feel like this is a Fnatic that has like that wonderful atmosphere that you always heard G2 have. So I think this analogy kind of fits, because everyone on this Fnatic roster seemed very content in all the footage we see in interviews and so forth.
And Yamato was talking about trust, and I think we got to see a great example of it when they played up against Origin last week, because a lot of their play was centered around mid, jungle, top. Bot lane was just left on an island. It was the Zilean for Hylissang, a champion they don't typically play, but a great adaptation and a great way to answer Origin, as they just funneled resources into the top side of the map. They used mid pressure well. They rotated around the top side well. And this meant that Fnatic didn't have to show their cards. They didn't have to rely on Rekkles when you know that this team can. So I feel like coming into today's series, Fnatic have even more cards that they're still yet to even play.
I think that just highlights how impressive this team is, because I feel like in the best of 5 against OG, you think of OG's biggest strengths and weaknesses. I think mid 2v2, big weakness. All of a sudden Nemesis is roaming the whole map because he has the matchups and the champion pool to do so. Full pressure into topside. Alphari was the all-star top laner. Bwipo showed it that it's kind of, you know, up to debate. And then they had the bottom side playing Senna coming into the Mad Lions matchup. They can approach it the same way. They can look at the enemy and they can pretty much adapt to them, or look to their weaknesses, punish their strengths in draft that is so difficult to handle, because you don't know what Fnatic's approach is going to be coming from the first game.
Holy moly! Can I just summarize what I've heard here in the last couple of minutes? They are G2-esque. They've actually taken what G2 does and improved up on it. They are extremely diverse. They can come with every plan. They have shown nothing yet. What's going on here? Are you guys ready to already give them the trophy, or why are you so impressed by this?
I think it's important to note that I think that they've taken inspiration from what G2 did last year, but they're yet to prove that they can emulate what G2 has done, which is win back-to-back titles, win an international title. So we still have to see what Fnatic can do with what they have, but I think with the building blocks that they have, things are looking very good for this Fnatic squad.
Yeah, I just wanted to challenge you a little bit. You know, we can spar a bit on the analyst desk to make sure that the Twitterverse isn't at your throat immediately. In any case, it's true. They have been playing fantastically. But they're up versus Mad Lions, who have played well in their own right. And our featured in the future, but also our featured matchup for today is in the bottom lane. And for more on that, Laure is talking to Kaiser.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Kaiser, for joining me. I hope you're having a nice week.
Yeah, I'm doing fine, yeah.
You did what people thought would be impossible last week, and now that you had time to let it sink in, what made you better than G2 last week?
I mean, I think what made us better is that we played our own style. We played really aggressive. We matched G2's aggression as well. Sometimes G2 gets caught in their own aggression a bit. They go over aggressive, and then we punish that. We punish that a lot, especially Shadow. Right, he went for I don't know 16 kills in the last game, just because they went really over aggressive a lot of the time. And I think just us playing our style, not being afraid of taking fights, is what has made us better.
I agree with all of that. And I mean, we had a talk about this with Mac last week, saying that when facing G2, you have to come in ready, not scared, and play aggressive. But being ahead of every move and getting G2 lost, I think it's something hard to do, especially given the experience that this team has. So how did you manage to play around them and get the advantage every time?
I mean, I think they were kind of surprised that we went this aggressive. Like, I think usually teams don't really. I mean, I think usually teams play more scared against them because like they have like these big names and stuff. But like especially in lane, like we always were like looking for like trades and stuff. Like because we knew like Caps is not that comfortable on AD carry just yet, so we can exploit them. And yeah, we just like try to play aggressive lanes or like pick aggressive lanes as well.
I see.
So we just attack their bot lane as well.
And now it changes the way people see Mad Lions, because we often hear that you are the comeback kids, the team that performs good under pressure. But now you're under the spotlight. So does it change anything when it comes to the pressure for you guys? Because it surely changes things with the way Fnatic will prep against you.
I mean, it changes a bit, but I don't think that much. Like, especially pre-game, like we were really like chilled out. Like we didn't really feel any pressure actually. Like we were even talking about it after the games that we didn't feel any pressure because like we just play our game. Like even if we like lose some or like we lose the series, like we still showed like how strong we are, right? Like we don't have to like win EU to like show that we are good, right? Like we just have to like play well, I would say. And I think we showed that already. So like now we can like we will just like try to keep performing well and like see how far we can go. And yeah, we just don't pressure ourselves. Like we just play our game and then everything will work out, I guess.
It's I hope for you guys, because it's going to be an intense game this week against Fnatic. Where do you think it's going to clash? We mentioned the bot lane, usually you guys versus Rekkles and Hylissang. Do you think it's going to be the key matchup here?
I mean, for sure. Like I think Bwipo and Orome have like a similar playstyle in that they often TP down to bot lane, like make it a 3v2 or like even like 3v5 or something. I mean 2v5 or something. Like both Mad Lions and Fnatic play like a similar style, right? And they just try to get the bot as far ahead as possible and then like just swap lanes, like take every objective, right? And yeah, we'll see like who sends their top laner bot lane more, I would say.
Well, we'll see about that indeed. Thank you very much, Kaiser, for the interview, and good luck against Fnatic. One step away from finals for you guys.
Thank you.
And back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Laure. Kaiser, indeed, one best of 5 away from the finals. There is a lot of focus on that bottom lane, and I'd like to ask my analyst if you guys agree that the bottom lane will be the focal point and a potential win condition for these Mad Lions.
I think it has to be Shocks when we look at what happened last week and the amount of investment that they put towards the bot side of the map, especially with how they're currently performing. Those are going to be two of the players that we keep our eyes on. I think that Kaiser summed it up well. Both top laners on both squads, especially during the regular season, typically play weak side, and there's a lot of investment towards TPing bot, roaming bot, allowing bot lane to play the laning phase as comfortably as possible. So bot lane is the name of the game, and I'm excited to see these two stack up against each other, just because I think Carzzy and Kaiser have been getting better and better. And last week, the number of 2v2 kills they were finding against Caps and Mickey makes them a force to be reckoned with.
And on top of that, I feel like they've mastered all the champions that are necessary to master right now in the bottom side. I don't know, the addition of Zilean, maybe that puts a turn on things, but they've played the Kalista, they played the Aphelios, they played the Senna, they played the Syndra even, a champion that so many teams ban, so many teams pretend to play, but who, in all honesty, can play it? It's probably just G2 and Mad Lions, so that makes them even more impressive, because on top of that, they get the leads and they know how to finish out games. In the mid to late game, there's a clear difference between Mad Lions and G2 and Fnatic in comparison to everyone else, and it's incredible for me to say that Mad Lions know how to play a mid and late game that is on that level, mostly through Kaiser and Shadow and of course Carzzy.
And I think what's really interesting is, Yamato was talking about it earlier in Ready Check, the fact that Fnatic seem to adapt to their opponents. I'm really curious as to how they're going to adapt to Mad Lions. Will they stick to this style that they played against Origin, where they actually invest more towards topside, where they just try and attack the typical weak side of the map for Mad Lions, and then rely on the bot lane to just play defensively, play on that weak side, which we know they're capable of just looking at last week's series? Or will they try and match them? Will they try and match this aggression and just go all in on the bot lane, and we'll just see a lot of bloodthirsty action where both bot laners are trying to gain advantages.
That's a great point, because we haven't really seen that much. I mean, if you look at the last series from Fnatic, we had that one game where Hylissang's Trundle went off. They lost that game though, but it was entertaining to watch. But for the rest, we had a lot of fasting Senna, and not a lot there except for the Zillion pick and then the Trundle and the Senna for Rekkles. So is this all they can do, or do they have a lot more in their pocket when it comes to that bottom lane? And can we expect to see a different style of bottom lane out of Fnatic in this match?
You know, Varius mentioned it. I'm going to steal his point here and just give him credit. The Zyra Khan is something they haven't showed up with. They played the Aphelios. They played the Misfortune. I don't know if Rekkles has, you know, I remember in off-season he was practicing in normal games, Teemo and Carzzy. I don't know if he's going to pull that off. But I don't think Rekkles is that player anymore that has a small champion pool. He's the type of player that can bring anything up. I think, you know, G2 taught him that lesson a couple of years ago. And I think Rekkles is a player that can definitely pull out the Kalista if needed to be.
What an awesome picture. Look at them. Of course, two of the most experienced bot laners in Europe versus the two newest players in that bot lane to the league. And I think this symbolizes the rest of the matchup as well. Fnatic versus Mad Lions. It's old versus new. It is experience versus rookies. And as Laura so aptly said, for Mad Lions, it's a different ball game. Last week, no one expected anything. This week, you are under the spotlight. What can you do versus Fnatic? And we will see. What a matchup. There is so much left to be decided, and whoever wins this best of 5 finds themselves in the final as the most winning team in EU, face off against the new superstars on Mad Lions.
Thank you very much, Shocks. Now I'm Dracos, joined by Frostguard, and I think we share a lot of the same excitement that you have for this series. It's going to be absolutely crazy. Mad, the truest underdog story we've seen in a long time, and they've already got one win. What's to stop them from getting another?
And that's kind of the question. It's, will the clock strike midnight on the Mad Lions Cinderella story, or will they be able to do the impossible? Will Fnatic knock them flat, knock the wind out of their sails, and remind everyone that they are the true heavyweights in this playoff tournament?
And that's big, big expectations on the shoulders of Mad. Obviously, they didn't crumble under the pressure against G2, so at this point, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that nothing is going to stop them in terms of individual performances, that we will see the best version of Mad Lions today. I hope we see the same level that we saw against G2, but the question is it enough to beat a team like a Fnatic, a team that hasn't really stopped, that hasn't looked any worse in playoffs as they did in regular season, looks as strong as ever, unlike G2?
And I think that there's a lot of truth to what the analyst desk was kind of teeing up for us, this idea of, you know, Fnatic are so versatile, so flexible, this 2019-esque G2, now the 2020 Fnatic version. They can pick where and when they beat you. So Fnatic have all of the options. Do they blitz towards the top lane and do what I think is probably the correct option, which is really pull apart the difference between Bwipo and Orome, or do they actually skill check bot lane? I expect that this is probably going to be the fasting Senna if Fnatic can get their hands on it, and then bot lane's just going to become rock, paper, scissors, who has what matchup, when does the matchup have priority, and neutralize itself. But there is always that possibility that Varius and Yamato were teeing up that you could try to skill check Carzzy and Kaiser, and if you do shut them down, then you prove to Mad Lions that, hey, your big shining crowning jewel on your roster, it doesn't matter because you're against the best in the business in Rekkles and Hilly.
I mean, if you do that in Game 1, a series can very, very quickly fall apart. But we are now into picks and bans. Fnatic, of course, on the blue side. Mad Lions on the red for Game 1. It is the Kalista taken away from Carzzy. Not a flex pick, I think it's safe to assume, in the hands of Mad Lions, but limited anyway. The Set, the Gragas, and the Pantheon are going to follow up. I like that Mad are taking some of these junglers away from Selfmade.
Yeah, but the one pick that has scraped through the ban so far is going to be that Senna. So will Mad Lions ban it from red side as their last ban, or will they give it away to Fnatic, which I'm sure would be the priority pick, trade it for the Aphelios and say, you know, this is fine, we're going to take the free lane phase because it is usually a slower pushing lane, and make sure that Carzzy can scale up into the team fights right where we like him.
They are definitely debating on this final ban. Maybe, though, they have something special prepared. Obviously, everyone got to witness the fasting Senna last week. So Mad Lions, if there was a counter pick to be discovered, they've had ample time to do it. So they're banning the Tahm Kench away instead, one half of the fasting Senna duo. But there are so many supports, so many champions that we've seen paired with the Senna, that it makes me feel like they want Fnatic to lock it in for us.
I would agree with that. It is also meaning that they could look for the kill-oriented bot lane since you are taking away one of the most defensive champions, using that Devour to reposition Rekkles. So I agree. It's trying Fnatic to see if they will look for that fasting Senna. They're not going to get the traditional Kench, but you know that they can run it with the Zilean, with the Maokai, with anything in between the Trundle. There's the Aphelios trade and the Ornn trade we were talking about. So Mad Lions, probably on second rotation, feeling really confident to say, this is fine. Like, we got probably two of the best scaling picks that are currently sitting in the meta right now. You can have the Senna.
I'm curious to see how this fits into the strategy that we heard talked about by Kaiser, playing their own game, playing aggressive, going for these fights, because both these champions, while they can fight, they can absolutely skirmish. Aphelios can do a lot. Normally, picks that I consider to be scaling. But Fnatic, so far they've got the Senna, and now additionally Hylissang's threat. So Fnatic are set up to go for some aggressive plays, potentially to have Hylissang start roaming, and that is always what I want to see when Hylissang is on the Rift, is champions that can roam around the map, that can make an impact somewhere outside of just bottom lane.
And this is one of the adaptations that I would have liked to see Mad Lion kind of snap on, is that they didn't necessarily have to snap grab Aphelios. They could have tried to reach for the Thresh themselves, because that's kind of the other side to banning away the Tahm Kench, is that you can grab a Thresh for Kaiser and you can try to play the kill-oriented bot lane. Now that said, you still have access to things like Nautilus if you wanted to, and try to play a kill-oriented bot lane, have more CC down there, so you're not completely punished for losing the Thresh, but you didn't have to reveal the Aphelios so early since Senna was already there.
And I think it's concerning to me because I think Aphelios is one of those champions that can absolutely solo carry a game if given enough space and time. But Tahm Kench and Braum are the two champions that I always look at to give him that space, to give him that time, to give him that safety. And with Tahm Kench banned away by Mad Lions themselves, I'm not as excited about this Aphelios, especially into a Thresh where one hook can spell death, where, you know, we can get the Shurima shuffle coming out from Nemesis as well. But Frostgrunn, the other thing I want to talk about is, we said, you know, kind of explosive. These are two teams that are going to be looking to fight, but I see a ton of scaling on both sides.
Yeah, it's the fact that we already have our late game insurance policies with the likes of the Azir and the Aphelios. Senna as well, her scaling with the soul stacking, and I think a lot of people kind of underestimate the damage because she has more of a Jhin-esque playstyle than more of the, you know, Tristana, Jinx, Xayah hyper carry-esque playstyles. As now we're kind of moving into secondary ban phase where a lot of the free blind picks are going to be pulled away. I would have suspected that Mad Lions might pinch the jungle pool a little bit more to make sure that Shadow gets a favorable matchup, but with something as powerful as Lee Sin, he's probably feeling very confident with the jungle options that are left available to Selfmade, depending on where he wants to try to attack.
And I like that they banned away the Zac as well. Obviously, a flex pick in the hands of Fnatic. We've seen them get very creative with it in the past. This ban feels like it's targeted at Bwipo, something that he feels safe blind picking, as you mentioned earlier. And Shadow getting Lee Sin, something I'm always happy to see. This man is an incredible Lee Sin player. He had a masterful performance against G2 across so many different champions, but that doesn't mean that his Lee Sin, in my opinion, isn't still his #1. And Fnatic banning away the Rakan themselves, that is respect to Kaiser, because Hylissang, I think right now, is the undisputed Rakan king, but even he doesn't want to mess with Kaiser after what he saw last week.
And Kaiser has been one of the rising stars on Mad Lions roster. I know we keep kind of grouping them all up together and call them these incredible rookies as a Zillion, probably getting locked in for Kaiser's hands. But Kaiser and Carzzy especially, like, Kaiser is his own man. He's made these crazy plays. He's a great initiator. He has great map sense. How he teams up with Shadow, that talked about it on the analyst desk. We'll be sure to track it in game. For me, he's the third best support in the league right now.
And I'm wondering, Frostgrunn, if we see a Zillion mid. Now, it has been a long time, but if you just don't want to lane, Zillion clears the wave and walks away. Also, unlike support Zillion, you know, mid lane Zillion can heal your Aphelios back to full life instantaneously. But we'll hold that thought. We'll see. We'll find out where it ends up going. In the meantime, it has been the Rek'Sai locked in up against Shadow. Now, Rek'Sai, obviously, early game considered, you know, pretty solid in the 1v1 duels because you can unburrow to cancel the Q, but late game, Lee Sin's got the edge because the kick is just so valuable. But the last pick is going to be Bwipo's. And I like the hover, but we're not going to get the exciting, thrilling potential Sylas top. We're getting to Maokai. We're right back to Lords of Dogtown here on the top side of the map for the Maokai Ornn showdown.
Oh, I'm so excited. Now, you could still flex the Ornn to the mid lane. Humanoid in his last series did show that he will play the tanks, and you could try to get, we're not going to do it, you could try to get a scaling pick to just punish the fact that Maokai's there, like, nah, fine, noodle fight, top side, it's all good.
Frostgrunn, I was so excited for Zillion mid, a phrase I thought I would never say, but Humanoid Zoe is good. If I had to pick a champion for Humanoid to play every game, it probably would be his Zoe. But I'm not sold on the Zillion Aphelios bot lane combo.
Why? Zilean really thrives when he gets to be really far forward and push in the lane. Aphelios has a lot of natural push into him. Now, obviously, you're playing around the death sentence, so that kind of be the make or break here. Senna also very good at pushing herself with the Q, so you can match priority there, and I think it's just about if Carzzy and Kaiser can avoid Hilly's gank setup as well as the death sentence. If so, then Zilean should actually be in a great position to start flinging bombs at them.
And look, I see the combo too, where you get the Gravitum, you get the Snare, you get the double bomb. That CC is beautiful. But that's the thing that you mentioned. Hylissang needs to hit one hook, one good, well-timed hook, and this lane phase just instantly ends, and that's my big fear. That is high-stakes bot lane play. So while you and me were like, all right, Analyst Desk, you talked about bot lane, we're going to shift our attention top, because this is where the real action is going to be happening. We're going to give AD credit on this one, but I don't think anything's happening on the top side of the map. That's Ornn versus Maokai, but bot lane is set to be super explosive as we get ready for this game. I'm gonna be honest, I just talked for probably a minute straight before we came into game. I'm amped up. I am fired up. I am so full of caffeine and love for League of Legends right now, I can't be stopped. But I'm gonna take a back seat for a second on my AK Racing chair. Haha. Got it. And toss it over to you. Where should we be looking? What are you excited about?
What are you trying to plug in right now that you need me to cover for? No, I know that you just you set up, you're like, it's going to be about bot lane. The analyst desk was like, it's going to be about bot lane. Guys, I actually don't think it's going to be about bot lane. I'm pretty sure it's going to be about the top side of the map and how these junglers are going to interact. A, because Selfmade is not messing around. He is the Hail of Blades Rek'Sai. Get this Conqueror out of here. He is here to kill some people. Make sure you can get that Q off multiple times. And Maokai actually has great gank setup. We're using his W because he's against an Ornn. I think it's kind of be who gets to the wave first, where the junglers are, and if you get the mid priority or get the wave priority, you can start cutting down into river, maybe even cheat towards the mid lane. I think Zoe and Azir both have small windows where you can try to look for gank access to them, especially on champions as mobile as Lee Sin and Rek'Sai, going to give the slight edge early to Rek'Sai there. And Hilly also has teleport, so he's not only running it on his Zilean, he's now also running it on his Thresh support.
That's commitment. And I'm actually very curious to see what farming Thresh buys for items. You know, Tahm Kench is a very clear Sunfire cape, get as tanky as possible as fast as you can. What does a farming Thresh buy in the early game? Have to keep our eyes on that one. And for now, you're right, bot lane not going to be crazy explosive. Even with Fnatic stepping towards the front of the lane at the start there, they're not trading too aggressively. Bwipo, on the other hand, clearly has plans in the wet noodle fight, because before anyone has items, there is, as you said, actually a decent amount of kill pressure in the 1v1.
And it's the refillable pot start for Orome on the Ornn there, trying to compete with Maokai's innate build sustain with his passive on the, what is it called, Sap Magic? Draining Sap Magic? BS passive? I don't know what the shorthand is for these. Sorry.
The Healy touch. We call it the Healy touch for us.
Yeah, that's what I call it. No. it's ridiculously hard to get him. I don't know. Draco, save me. It's hard to get him out of the way.
Yeah, it's hard to bully Maokai out, and you're right. And especially for an Ornn who wants to poke, who, while he does have solid all-in damage, he's not going to 100-0 a tank without alternate jungler there. So when it comes to sustaining the lane phase, Maokai has a really big advantage, at least until Ornn gets Catalyst under his belt.
But now you have Selfmade already peeking his head in, scouting, finding Shadow, and I'm curious again if Selfmade's going to try to be really aggressive.
He's going to have a new stance on jungling. He's going to go, I'm not going to gank. That's the progressive stance. The liberal jungler.
Make jungle great again. If he's going to team up with Bwipo in this W and try to see if they can punish this Ornn, because I think that this is actually just a winning matchup for Bwipo. Until, like you're saying, the initial itemization comes in, Catalyst for Orome, he gets some of that MR, and then maybe it gets slightly better. But there is kill pressure up here when Maokai can hold people down, and people forget how much damage these tanks can do early. So early TP, trying to keep Orome locked into lane, trying to deny this CS, and Selfmade's also pinging up here, so Fnatic know that Shadow is playing top side of the map, and I think this is the moment. Bwipo is looking, never mind. I was gonna say, Bwipo is looking juicy, he's looking tasty, high in fiber. They want to try to bait out a gank and possibly turn it into a counter gank for a kill, but nah. Selfmade comes around that corner, makes eyes at Shadow, is like, never mind.
Yeah, and the thing is Ornn's health bar and mana bar are so low that in my mind it's like, that's possible. but there's no reason to risk it, right? Because the Lee Sin has more than enough damage with the tower backing him up to kill both of those champions if a dive goes through. I'm sure Fnatic would have killed Orome. It just would not have been worth the price they would have had to pay. And so now Selfmade goes back. He's going to get level 4. He and Shadow both very even. I'm ready to see what Shadow can do once he hits level 6. Good for Rek'Sai, not nearly as good as it is for Lee Sin, however. In mid lane, sort of as expected. We said bot lane, we said top lane, these are the points of action. We said mid lane, nothing's going to happen. So far, it's true. Story not going to change here as Nemesis does get a clean slide and glide there out of the mid lane.
I mean, theoretically, something could happen in mid lane. There are windows, but it's usually going to be around that cleanse and around the time that Zoe and Azir get perma-wave clear with big enough mana pools, as well as having access to enough points in their abilities that they can perma-wave clear. So for Zoe, that's level 5. I do want to point out, though, that Hilly and Rekkles, using their wave priority, actually punish Shadow by taking bot Scuttle Crab. So while you said that it does feel like the junglers are even, the pressure across map from Fnatic are taking these small incremental advantages, and you can see the CS discrepancy opening up between Selfmade and Shadow as he's just trying to get whatever he can back, which was the Krug camp into the Blast Cone.
And a bit of a risky invade from Shadow. Down an item, Selfmade had just recalled. He had the Challenging Smite as well as the Longsword, but Shadow is going to be able to walk away, is going to be able to come out on top in that, just stealing a single camp. Selfmade still with a decent lead as he'll now clear out his Raptors. He's going to be racing towards that level 6 point, and if we wanted to see kill pressure top lane, surely once Rek'Sai gets level 6, there should be more than enough damage to go top to force Orome out. But, of course, as always, bot lane is still an option right up until Zilean gets level 6, so some flexibility for the side of Fnatic.
Also, really nice ward placement from Shadow. I don't think it caught Selfmade down here, but you can see that the pings come through.
Oh! Flash. That was a clincher. Carzzy, very good flash. Hylissang with the aggressive flash as well. A well-placed hook, and I think a positive trade. Trading fast for flash. Solid overall, but I got very nervous for the half a second that Carzzy was CC'd right before he managed to flash out of that one.
And this is classic Hilly, and also just kind of what I would call the basics of playing bot lane. I think everyone would agree that it's usually best that you trade your flash on support for your flash on your ADC, because your supports usually come with so much added utility, possibly even tank stats. But Fnatic seem to be the team consistently that will make that happen. As he's skirmishing topside. Hit him with the W!
Wait, Bwipo might have the magic touch ready. He's going to flash forward. That's the W that you talked about, but now here comes the call of Forge God. Where's the Ram going to go? First blood coming through for Orome. What did we say, Frostgurn? We talked about Bwipo. He's going to be so much stronger, but no, Orome's not taking shit from anybody. Look at that.
Hit him with the Ram. W on me again, I dare you. Yeah, so that was a lot burned. The flashes came through. Sorry, I was supposed to be glass half full right there. I can just think that's funny. I'm assuming Orome and Comms is like, yeah, gank me again. Let's go.
I'm pumped for him. That was, I mean, well played by Orome. Bwipo way too over-aggressive. He thought the magic touch was going to give him way more health. Selfmade was still only level 5.
I think that was
laughing straight to the bank.
That was the desync there. The fact that Selfmade wasn't quite there on time, that Bwipo had played some trades. You know, we didn't really get to see what happened, but obviously was much lower health and was almost kind of forced to react when he had to and not necessarily wait for Selfmade's setup there. And now with the Catalyst complete, we talked about how Maokai was an unmovable object. Ornn is now an unmovable object into this matchup. And now the wet noodle fight truly begins, which means I think more focus on mid lane.
Oh, excellent play. Humanoid not to flash away, but it's a stolen ignite. Selfmade now coming over the wall, still only level 5. Shadow. Ooh, also going to match. But Frostgurn, you talked about top lane, and I do have to give some credit here, because Orome played a great series last week, so people might be wondering why we were kind of so favorably in the Bwipo camp. Now, Bwipo stats, you can see, during the regular season are fantastic. Always winning at CSD, always active in kills, has a huge portion of his team's damage stats. But when we shift over to Orome was the weak side top laner and some pretty weak performances as well. Consistently behind in CS, not a big part of the damage, not very active early game in the kills, but what we saw last week and what we saw here in this early game is a huge step up in that individual performance.
I mean, to be fair to him, and to be fair to Bwipo, however, it was tank v tank matchup. So yes, credit where credit is due. In the 2v1, soft 2v1 is what we're going to call it. Orome did make the outplay, killed Bwipo with the ultimate and got the first blood. But in the games against G2, Orome, when he's in the tank matchups and he's not pressured, he does fine. But when he is fighting more of the bruisers, more of the fighters like the Aatroxes, he was punished quite severely, and I expect that to be the change of a strategy for Fnatic if they lose this game here. I would expect, like, game 2 of Fnatic coming in 0-1 to Mad Lions, like, get Bwipo carry, let's go.
You'd have to respect it. And while we've been talking a lot about the top side of the map, top side has been the focus and the herald, in fact, for both sides. Bwipo getting aggressive, going for this play, but the knockup is there and Shadow's over the wall. Still only level 5 for Shadow, however. Bwipo knocking him back. Magic Touch going to heal him up nice and good. And there it is. A little bit of a revenge kill as Selfmade's going to grab that one.
Also interesting that Selfmade was picking up the kill. I don't think he needed really to flash there and grab it. I think that was pretty certain Fnatic's kill there. So obviously funneling the gold onto the Rek'Sai, who's now has the complete Warriors enchantment versus Senna. Maybe not my pick, but we'll see how that works out.
Could argue limited window of opportunity to maximize on Rek'Sai value. I would argue, I think, as would you, that I would rather see the gold on the carry. But maybe they're like, hey, you get souls, Rekkles. It's a good deal for everybody. It's
also, Rekkles' itemization is, I mean, not comparatively to Rek'Sai, but just in general on the Senna, is quite inexpensive for her power windows, because she doesn't go for the hyper-expensive Infinity Edge builds. But not having Flash on Rek'Sai, when that's her primary setup tool, you're then hyper-reliant on either ganking for a Death Sentence that connects, or actually ganking for the Maokai. So that's, I think it just slows down what Fnatic want to attack the map with, not having Flash. And that's kind of the bigger loss for me.
And we've heard from Mad Lions, specifically Peter Dunn, about how in the past, playing with a Zoe mid, oftentimes Mad Lions very much do focus on limiting that Rek'Sai's ability to flash, because without flash, Zoe can kind of just have a heyday in the mid lane. She can walk up, she can get aggressive. The only thing she has to be scared of is the stream of shuffle, because Rek'Sai is so telegraphed in any approach. She has to walk into you to get a knock-up without flash, and that's just not ideal against a champion as slippery as Zoe.
Yeah, and since Humanoid doesn't have access to his flash right now, he does have to be respectful. Like you're saying, he can't be that far forward. Although he's just going to face check into Selfmade here. That was the most confident GLP I've ever seen.
He's got Kaiser there. He says, you have your finger on that R key ready, buddy. It's actually genius. Sorry, just for the memes, though, think about it. Humanoid, we criticized him a lot for isolated deaths. Kaiser can revive Humanoid. That's especially big brain, Frostburn.
The thing is that on Zoe, Humanoid shouldn't... Okay, so here's the thing. Yes, Humanoid does tend to die isolated. I'll hold it, though, because here comes the gank crew, okay? They're just walking by, just giving them a wave. Humanoid likes to play with pressure, and he likes to play with pressure to kill people. He doesn't like to just sit on the pressure that he has on the side lane, which is why oftentimes it feels like Humanoid's looking for those crazy, like, 2v1 outplays, the 1v1 tower dives.
Oh, that's a knockback, though. Humanoid without a flash is now just trying to waddle his way out to safety. That's a very slow Rek'Sai. Can't find the knockup quite yet, but now the ulti is going to guarantee the land. Shadow, though, with the kick back. Here comes the Rekkles ult to save the day. Selfmade under the tower. Not going to work out for him in the end. Well played by the side of Mad to turn it into a 1-for-1.
Yeah, 1-for-1 trade. Again, Humanoid without the flash. That was kind of the one window that you had. The cleanse just about to come off of cooldown there, so Fnatic rightfully punishing where they had it. And still, again, a very quiet bot lane. We haven't really seen either of these bot laners participating with the kills outside of the Rekkles ultimate that went through. Back to Humanoid. Humanoid on Zoe.
Ult that thought. There's a hook. There's a bit of damage on Carzzy. We might get an ult out, but no. It's going to be the barrier as well as the heal. Kaiser and Carzzy both burning their secondary sums.
He can't play side lane as confidently, so if he's grouped up with his team as primary wave clear or being used as the pick option to try to find long-range bubbles, that's less Humanoid dying on side lane. And you know what? I respect a player that tries to play at max limitations. Like, Humanoid goes for the crazy play, so eventually it's not that crazy anymore.
And I think in that case, when you look back at that replay, it seems to me, at least, that Humanoid may have been going for the Sleepy Trouble Bubble onto Nemesis, hoping to help Lee Sin find that kill, but of course, by committing there, he does line up the knockup for Rek'Sai and guarantee his own death. But now, finally, the first tower is going to go down. Went from a very kind of dead even game now to a 1k gold lead for Fnatic. 2-2 the kill score. Cloud Drake in the tower, really the big advantages for Fnatic at this point in the game.
Yeah, so I feel that the two players who are having the least fun time right now are actually the junglers, because they're looking around at their map like, I can try to force a gank here, but it's probably not going to feel great either way. Both teams are just doing the handshake. We traded map a couple of times, objectives.
Yeah, mid laners now splitting off into side. It looks like Hylissang and Rekkles are going to take up home in mid lane. Makes sense if you're Senna, trying to gather as many souls as possible. Mad are going to take this opportunity to start up the Infernal.
And Fnatic seem fine and willing to trade this for priority and pressure into the mid lane. Now that they have eyes about where Mad Lions are, they're going to feel super confident to push up. Like you said, parking Rekkles and Hilly there, especially whenever you have Death Sentence. One of the bad things, though, is that Senna is still a relatively slow pusher comparatively to other ADCs. Nice thing is that with Death Sentence, however, she can be so much braver pushing forward down these lanes as long as Thresh is positioned like that.
Of course, the Bomby Cinder plus the Flay, it means that Hylissang can offer some wave clear. I don't like it as much as I like having the Zilean there for the additional wave clear, but Fnatic not completely without wave clear in this mid lane duo thus far. Checking in on top lane, Frostgarden. It remains the wet noodle fight. Sunfire Cape is coming in first for the Maokai. Not as worried about the individual lane matchup, just wants the extra wave clear and the extra armor up against the likes of Carzzy and Shadow. While Orome very close to the Abyssal Mask and should at this point just be completely unkillable. We're just looking at top lane for TPs and wave control.
Yeah, Shadow right now trying to set up a pick, doesn't connect. But you're going to see this type of position set up from Mad Lions at this stage in the game where you're using Lee Sin to look for these really deep flanking opportunities. Really good vision control, however, from Fnatic, not just covering Bwipo on the top side of the map. That's 3-4 wards scattered throughout top side jungle, but also on bot side to cover potential flanks, catching them out. And right now it feels like Fnatic have really just stalled Mad Lions out.
Not a bad position to be in. As mentioned before, Aphelios going to scale very hard, but the Senna as well with enough souls becomes, like you said, Jhin-esque. Not very interactive as an AD carry, not going to fire out those rapid-fire auto attacks, but is just going to increase in strength the longer and longer we go, especially alongside the likes of Nazir, the true AP hyper carry alongside Corki.
So one of the problems that they're going to run into, though, is trying to crack these mid lane towers for both teams, which is why this Herald is going to be so much more important. I'm curious how bold Fnatic are going to feel to try to start this one up, instead of using maybe some of their vision control to set up a pick with Death Sentence. So, actually looks like we're just going to go toe-to-toe, set the line of scrimmage, and see who checks blind into what CC. Shadows in pit.
Shadows stepping forward. First item has now been completed from Nemesis. He's going to do a lot of damage here. They're trying to zone away. Bwipo's ult is out, and they've already waited for it. Orome's going for the setup on the back side. Ornhorn comes through, but it's going to be a whiff. Not the field goal that they were looking for. Carzzy now running forward. Big ulti coming in from Humanoid, but he manages to go back. Hylissang pulled in the enemy backline, trying to buy a bit more time. Shield coming in from Rekkles. Hylissang now stepping forward, but he has to be careful because that's the Herald over to Mad Fnatic. Ooh, committing too much to make that happen. Mad just gets to swoop in and take the Herald.
Yeah, and the team that starts the Herald is at the disadvantage because they're fighting on two sides, the Herald side and Mad Lions side. They take a lot of damage. They're eventually forced off of it. Mad Lions, hey guys, thanks for the leash. Pick it up onto Shadow. And now can either choose to break this top tower, potentially free up this Ornn, allow him more access to roam around, start using that utility, or put it into the mid lane and give them more access to side.
Bwipo getting a little bit frisky here, but Orome obviously without any mana can't really do much of anything in Shadow. While he's confident, he sees that Sunfire Cape, he knows he cannot burst that Maokai down. So they will back off. The process is interesting because if you had told me at the start of playoffs this is what game one of Fnatic Mad Lions had looked like, I probably would not have believed you that it would be kind of this close and this controlled from both sides. I also wouldn't have believed that they beat G2, but here we are. It's a crazy world we live in.
And it was kind of a question of, were Mad Lions just matching G2? We heard Kaiser in his interview that they just weren't afraid to go toe-to-toe with them, that going in, Mac had told them that they just want to play their style, and they'll go blow for blow with G2, and G2 are a naturally very scrappy, skirmish-heavy team, and while Mad Lions have kind of made their bread and butter over the course of the regular split, relying on team fights, they aren't necessarily the same level of brawlers, so this does feel like a much slower-paced game than I think people really expected, but it still feels like it's been a lot in controlled by Fnatic. And so Mad Lions haven't really had to force to fight because Fnatic haven't pushed hard on them.
And we'll see where Fnatic want to push. The Herald felt like maybe just a bit of testing from the side of Fnatic. Obviously a bit over-aggressive. Obviously a loss on their side to give up that Herald. But not losing anything more than that. And we'll see if Fnatic want to try to force another fight or force another objective and what Mad can do to respond. Of course, first items coming out now across the board. So we are slowly ramping into that mid to late game stage.
Yeah, and right now we're just waiting for pushing, ping-ponging farm back and forth while we set up for the incoming Mountain Dragon spawning in 35 minutes. Again, it's going to be easier for Fnatic to wrestle back mid lane priority because, again, that safety of the Death Sentence as well as the advantage of top tower being down. You can see Bwipo shoved the way forward. It gives him this massive window since there's no tower to roam down, get to his team first. He's now looking for the flank.
Carzzy is absolutely fearless. He has Zilean ult, so he's just going to go in straight into the enemy team. Problem is, no one else is around. He doesn't have a Thresh Lantern, so bye-bye Carzzy. Bit over-aggressive there from the Mad Lions AD carry. A bit too much confidence after that G2 series. The fight's going to continue, but not a whole lot of consequence will happen. Humanoid will not connect on the Paddle Star, and that was bad. Frostgarden.
And maybe that answers the question of, was it Mad Lions that were just matching what G2 were doing? G2 were there, so Mad Lions showed up, or Mad Lions really revealing their true colors of, hey, we're down to scrap, we're down to tango. Carzzy, like you said, stepped way too far forward, was really feeling himself, lost track of where the CC was, and got punished rightfully for it. And in response, Fnatic get everything across the map. Mid, Drake, and healthy damage onto bot tower.
And sadly, their Herald not going to be active while the tower plates are up. In the meantime, Selfmade grabbing second dragon of the game. That is bad. Carzzy's going to regret that one. You can kind of see the perfect play in his mind, I think, where the entire team's there. He gets to revive as the rest of his team engages and they can come out on top, but I'm not sure that was very realistic.
I mean, you saw the Flay went down, and technically the death sentence doesn't connect, so the two big pieces of CC from the guy in front of him, Thresh, Carzzy's like, did hit me with him, and then, of course, Maokai and Rek'Sai show up from the flanks, so that would be the issue.
Now, maybe thinking they had the 3v3 there. I respect that Carzzy's trying to maximize the value of Zilean ult, but at the end of the day, that was a play that they will look back on and know that it's potentially the play that puts them in too big of a deficit to come back from. Because Fnatic is not a team that lets go of leads easily. Now 2K, almost 3K in the lead 20 minutes in. As you said, they were dictating control earlier. They made a small slip-up at Rift Herald. Carzzy made a big slip-up, or an oopsie, as I like to call it, in the mid lane there. That was rough.
And now the issue is that this is really going to dictate the pressure across the map because, again, it was already easier for Fnatic to contest mid lane priority between the Azir and the Aphelios Thresh combination. Excuse me, Senna Thresh combination. Aphelios has to stand so much further back the lane because he doesn't have the same safety, so he has to wait for the wave to bounce into him, which means that Fnatic are always going to get to the play setup, the rotation first. And when you have so much pick and so much CC in the Thresh and in the Maokai, and whenever Rek'Sai has the flash up, getting first to those rotations is going to be super punishing against a team as inexperienced as Mad Lions in some of these more intense situations. So that's kind of the next step up of the game. Losing mid, they've lost now the pressure game, at least on the top side of the map.
And even after their win against G2, you still have to wonder how they're going to handle those high-intensity situations. Like this one right here, unstoppable for Orome comes out, but it might be too little too late as Rekkles and Hylissang are now on the chase. More than enough CC here. Glacial Augment going to proc the slow. Good sidestep there on both pieces of CC. Still unstoppable. Orome, though, going to get hooked back. Trying to make his way out of this one. Kaiser does have ultimate available. Is going to speed him out to safety. Good on Orome. Dodging both the hook as well as the snare from Rekkles. Keeps him alive long enough for Kaiser to bail him out. I mean, even if they had hit him, I think Orange just a little bit too tanky at this situation, but you are correct that it was really nice blue suede shoes. He did have some sweet sidesteps, and I think Fnatic are now going to change up their style as Nemesis grabs Humanoid. Not afraid to just run face first into that Zoe. All those cooldowns are gone. That's going to be Zoe's actual flash taken away, but Nemesis is out of cooldowns. There goes the ulti from Rekkles, the kickback. Shadow missing the follow-up. A rare misstep from the Mad Lions jungler. The knockup comes through. Easy follow-up there. You cannot afford to make mistakes like that against a team like Fnatic. And that was the difference between trading and potentially getting out with your life and just giving away a free Baron and potentially the first game. Suddenly, Mad Lions just collapse at multiple points across the map. When you show me the G2 series, I tell you Mad's not a team of rookies. But you show me small mistakes like that, and it comes back to you. They do still have to prove more. Obviously, beating G2 is fantastic, but if you want to stand at the top of Europe, you have to execute on these plays. When someone gets aggressive, you have to be able to fight back. You have to hit your skill shots, and it just does not happen here for Mad. And the cooler thing here is that this is Nemesis versus Humanoid. These are the two Mad Lion mid laners going toe-to-toe. These guys have faced so many times. They were in the competition for who was truly going to be like that next rising star of the mid lane. Was it going to be Nemesis? Was it going to be Humanoid? And it feels like Nemesis had already eclipsed Humanoid in my mind, but then with that 1v1 kill, that pick off into the side lane, he was just reminding everyone. It wasn't even a competition to begin with, guys. And that's something we don't see in the Zoe Azir matchup a whole ton, is that when she commits forward on the portal jump, the Azir just goes, I'm in. I'm rushing you. I know where you're reappearing. I am full committing, and I will take this all in. But well played by Nemesis, and now we also get to see part of the reason why Fnatic love this Senna so much. It's the good use of that ultimate from Rekkles. And when you're against a team that has Humanoid on it, you know he does like to play very aggressive in those side lanes. I think at that point he was actually just trying to clear farm, but we've seen Humanoid a number of times look for those outplays, look for those kills. The Senna makes a lot of sense. It worked against Origin. It's now probably going to continue to work against Mad Lions, and eventually someone's going to have to ask the question, do we deny this from Fnatic? Because that Glimmy,
wow, global ultimate, semi-global, global ultimate is really punishing. It just allows you to win matchups cross-map. Even if it wasn't the difference maker there, it has been in the past.
And the flexibility of Fnatic that they are a team that is happy to play through any lane when given the opportunity. Bot lane just left on the wayside in this current meta as the Senna has freed up the other lanes to play a bit more aggressive. And now we see Fnatic continuing to pull ahead. That's just a wet noodle fight. I'm not going to cast it until there's any actual kill pressure. But 6K gold lead for Fnatic at this point in the game alongside the double Drakes. It feels like it would take a massive throw for them to lose out on this one because there's too much gold. The scaling with the Azir already having a death cap, it's nigh impossible for Mad to come back at this point.
So let's check in on some of the itemization that we've seen. We were asking what Hilly was going to build on the Feasting Thresh. He went for the Dead Man's Plate and the Sunflower. Sunflower obviously for cost effectiveness, especially the itemization against the opponent he's across from. But then going for the Dead Man's Plate to kind of work in tandem with the roaming potential that Hilly likes to have.
I thought the ultimate's going to come back, but they're selling all their damage onto Bwipo. The Lantern alongside the healing coming in, Piercing Light. Does mean that they're not going to be able to finish off a single kill, and it does mean that Azir is now uncontested on the top side tower. Zoe can poke, but she can't commit for the all-in. So Nemesis is going to open up that inhibitor and walk away.
And also against the Baron, she's really struggling to siege down those minions because she doesn't have flash, and if she doesn't have backup, she's also under threat that Nemesis could look for the dive if he spots that the other 4 members of Mad Lions are busy fighting cross-map from him. So Humanoid just kind of had to watch his base get decimated there, couldn't do anything without backup.
It's a difficult situation because the stakes just raise when your opponent has a Baron. Single mistake turns into guaranteed inhibitor tower instead of just being maybe one tower, maybe one small objective. When you're this late in the game, everything is more high stakes, and Mad are paying the price for small moments of indecision, for small moments of overcommittal onto a now pretty much officially unkillable Maokai, at least when the team is around.
Now, something that can be said, though, is that we did see Mad Lions go 5 games with G2, so while this one looks like it's going to be the loss, we expect that Fnatic should be able to cleanly close it out from the tape that we have. We know that Mad Lions are able to bounce back from these situations. Again, Kaiser in his interview said that they really have nothing to lose. They just have to, they've already proven that they're a good team. No one's really expecting them to win the split, so it alleviates a lot of that pressure, and they showed that in the G2 series that they can go the distance, that they have the endurance, and they can find the mental reset.
And that's something that we don't usually get to say about rookie teams, right? Usually it's, hey, you lose one game against the higher seed, the perceived top team. Usually we kind of expect these teams to struggle, to suffer, not always to fall apart, but there's usually some change in performance when an enemy team is winning, and it's partly due to single mistakes from individual players. But Mad have earned that faith. They've earned that credibility with their victory over G2. So something to look forward to is how they adapt in the next game. What we see change in this draft if they take the Senate away, and what else they have up their sleeve. Because this feels very standard Mad Lions to me, but knowing their coaching staff, I feel like there's got to be some spicy picks that they have not shown us quite yet.
Yeah, it does feel very standard. Maybe the Zillion, kind of the only strange thing here, or at least out of the ordinary from Mad Lions. We've, of course, already seen Fnatic play it in the playoffs. As this does feel like a little bit of a slow chokehold from Fnatic right now, as they're just kind of suffocating Mad Lions out of the map. It does mean that there's a little bit of time here for Mad Lions to dig deep, try to find that miracle turn. What that would look like is, again, you need Shadow to find some sort of deep flank, get a necessary target, preferably someone like Nemesis, and hopefully back kick him into your team and just delete him.
Yeah, taking Nemesis out of the fight makes everything significantly easier because Rek'Sai's damage, while solid, falls off a lot, and she's definitely not going to be able to one-shot Carzzy unless Carzzy is severely mispositioning. Almost all the sustained damage is actually Azir at this stage of the game.
Is Hilly building a Wit's End?
My god, yes he is. Oh boy, do you remember Wit's End Sunfire Cape? Do you remember when it was OP? That was my jam back in top lane. It's coming back for Thresh. That's a lot of damage, Frosk.
He's playing so much side lane support right now. This is what he does. He gets fed, like, Rekkles, here comes the airplane. Like, yeah, open your mouth, Hilly. Like, spoon feeds him all of this gold. And then no matter what champion he has, he builds. He's got the passive movement speed from Deadman's Plate. He is so tanky between the armor of Sunfire and Deadman's. And then now he has the Wit's End. He can push waves pretty effectively because he can hit so quickly and then just burn them with the fire. And even if you catch him, you can't kill him.
Oh, flank on mid lane. Bwipo now going in. He's going straight onto Kaiser. He just wants to isolate the Zillion. The ulti now forced out, and that means Carzzy has to run for the hills. Selfmade trying to make his way in, but the kickback is coming through. Still, Bwipo's right on top of Carzzy. Carzzy's desperately trying to live. He's got a lot of life steal, but I don't think it's going to be enough. He's getting burned down, and there it is. Selfmade going to find the kill. Nemesis swoops in and takes down Humanoid once again. Selfmade now on the chase, and Fnatic are just going to be able to barrel into the base of the Mad Lions.
And it feels like Fnatic just sucker punched Mad Lions, just took the wind all out of their sails, at least for game one, and remind everyone,
we have emotes!
Oh no, we truly are the heavyweights of playoffs. Spam the emotes, guys. Put the salt in the wound.
I forgot, I did not know. Shout out to Selfmade for that one. Sorry, Frostgren, you had a great point ready. I hadn't seen it before. It was a special time seeing the Pengu cheering.
It's fine.
Fnatic.
Take your moment.
There you go. Fnatic closing out game one with confidence. Very slow controlled in the early game, but once Fnatic found that big lead, there was no coming back for the Mad Lions. Adaptation in game two is going to be the name of the game as we close this first one out with a Fnatic win and a dabbing Pengu. My God, yes, I've waited for so long.
How does it taste, Rekkles?
So good.
That's what it's going to taste like for Fnatic right now. Felt like they weren't pressured at all. There was a bit of some oopsies on the top side there. Orome getting the first blood onto Bwipo. But outside that, super clean, standard, straightforward game from Fnatic to open up these series and really send a message again to Mad Lions and to Europe. It's okay, guys. G2 may have let you down, but you know where to stand if you want to be on the winning side.
I feel like that's accurate, and I feel like it's interesting now that rather than the story being G2 versus Fnatic, it's at this moment who can do better versus Mad Lions to win back the faith of like the old school European fans that are either siding with G2 or siding with Fnatic.
Here's the thing, Mad Lions, they don't have to win this series to have already claimed victory. They have already won as far as playoffs are concerned. They are already the base of our heart.
Yeah, top four. In your first season, beating G2 in your first season, it's already
your first split.
First split, yeah. It's monumental thus far, but that's going to do it for us here at the Caster Desk. When we return, more spicy League of Legends action. There it is.
Teams are definitely stronger than they were last year. I still believe that we are ahead of the competition, given our players. I'm not scared of losing. I just always try my best and give it all I have to win.
Zenithblade catches onto Perk, but he turns around, petrifying gaze. That manages to stun two. The knockup from Wonder is fantastic. G2 have turned this game around.
Every team makes mistakes, but they will always get punished. They will not really get to the late game that they want to with their comps they draft. I think we are all very motivated to still win the split.
We are just getting started, actually, and it's the start of our journey.
Teleport coming down, the stopwatch has been used. Nukeduck's Emperor's Divide is fantastic. The Grand Starfall comes down. This has gone horribly, horribly wrong for Rogue.
While we are one lose away from being out of playoffs, I'm really grateful that we still have a chance to make it to the finals.
Child, you would wait and watch from far away, but you always knew that you'd be the one to work while they all play.
We
Welcome back, everyone, to the analyst desk, and welcome back to round 2 of the LEC playoffs, where Fnatic has just taken the first game over Mad Lions 1-0 in what was a very clean affair, I would say, or I would summarize. But I have to say, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the draft. I expected, and I was promised crazy stuff. I expected madness in the draft.
You say Maokai Orn ain't crazy enough for you, Shox? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, it isn't. But I think, all jokes aside, it is, of course, interesting. It is the first game of this so important best of 5. Just looking at both routes and both plans that Mad and Fnatic respectively decided to take.
I liked what Fnatic showcased here.
Okay, well, I'm...
Oh, Yamato, I see Yamato speaking, but he's muted, so
sorry,
I don't hear him.
Sorry, I'm here, I'm sorry.
He's here.
Sorry,
okay, Yamato, go.
I muted one, not the other, and the third, and the fourth.
It's complicated,
anyway,
man. Technology.
It's very complicated. Is there any wonder people are afraid of technology? Nevertheless, this draft... I really like the Fnatic draft because they stole away the Azir. The Senna Thresh, it's so unique in the sense that, you get this tanky champion with you always. The Azir takeaway kind of put Humanoid in the position where he last picked Zoe, and looking in Zoe into so many tanks is just not that great. You always look at compositions like this and you compare the scaling, and I think Fnatic is favored here because they have the Azir to kill the tanks, and they have the tanks to block the Zoe Qs, and on top of that, they have the cleanse value on Senna and also Azir, and these are the things that are going to matter as you scale into the game. But then again, it didn't really matter because Fnatic stomped so hard in that mid game.
I think what was really interesting to me about the draft was how, when I looked across the board, my question marks were, okay, this Thresh being funneled resources seems kind of weird. I was also looking at the Rek'Sai pick, and I'm like, okay, Rek'Sai doesn't really have a huge amount of options. You could look to try and gank bot, but it has to be early, and I felt like that it was kind of a mishmash. But when you look at it in entirety and what its goal is, the priority is that in the early game, Fnatic actually have prio in mid because of the Azir. He's very good at pushing fast. This means that you have early river control towards the bot side of the map, and because Senna and Thresh can actually get push in this 2 versus 2, it gives you the ability to control the bot side river very early on. This gave Fnatic the opportunity to play for early Drakes, which is very important, especially against a team like Mad, because as Yamato was saying, Fnatic had a comp that scaled better, but something that Mad do very well, and they showcased against G2, is if you put the pressure on early Drakes, you can stack up to that 4 Drake win condition very quickly. So by delaying that and elongating that, it makes it a harder win condition for a Mad, which means that they're forced into more difficult situations early on. And I think this is what made things much harder for Mad, because they didn't have the same agency that they had against G2 last week, and Fnatic just felt like they were controlling the pace of the game from minute 1.
Well, I would put a little caveat there because I agree Fnatic did look, of course, very strong, but I wouldn't say Mad seemed so incredibly out of sorts. And when you look at the games they did play versus Fnatic in the regular season, 1 win, 1 loss, we see that just like in this game, things are pretty stable until the 16-18 minute mark. No big mistakes were made whatsoever until this point. So is this just a consequence of Fnatic's draft matching up better at this point in time versus Mad?
Honestly, I think this was just a straight-up int. There's not much to do with it. Carzzy was trying to target a Thresh that honestly had like 200 armor at this point in time. And the key thing what we mentioned in the pregame is when Fnatic get ahead, they stay ahead. When they get a position to snowball, they get that 1 kill, all of a sudden it leads to so much. We saw the Mountain Drake, we saw the bottom turret, we saw the mid turret as well. If Fnatic is ever in this position in a game, we don't see them losing. It is so important to skip these mistakes because Mad Lions did have some moments of goodness. We had the solo kill with the Ornn, they had the contest on the Rift Herald, they took the Rift Herald, maybe they could use it to get some kind of advantage, but instead we had Carzzy trying to use Zilean a bit too much, rushing in on that Thresh that had just too much armor. It is the surprise of the funnel Thresh, of course.
But for me, it kind of comes back to what you were saying, Shox, which is very much that, yeah, I think the draft did put Mad into this kind of position because I think the easiest lane for them to gank was mid, and we actually saw them attempt a gank mid quite a few times, but to no avail, and a large part of that was because of the cleanse mid and because of how Nemesis controlled his lane. But once they couldn't get that, you said it, yes, they were even at that point, but this is a bad thing for Mad, because if they're going even into the later stages of the game, then Fnatic's comp is just going to be stronger and better, so they had to try and force a play. That was the play they tried to force, the play didn't go in their favor, and then things just kind of got worse, especially when we saw that top lane play go horribly wrong for the side of Mad, where Nemesis moving off to a side lane, not something that you typically see from an Azir, but the moment he sees this Zoe extremely far pushed out all the way into the middle of the top lane, he's like, this is easy for me. I can quite easily get this solo kill, and you're able to see how Fnatic quickly transition this into a very big Baron take.
And there is, that is where Fnatic rather is, of course, feeling very, very at home, right? When they get that advantage, when they know they can go into that Baron and then just push out the games. So what we're getting at here and what I'm gathering from you, Vedius, is the fact that it wasn't necessarily a bad draft to begin with, and they are playing to their tendencies as in Mad, but they might be up against an opponent where they will have to go to the next level and change some things up in order to stay in this series.
I think so, because I think once again we got to see the great adaptation from Fnatic in their drafting, and I think question mark pings were coming up in many people's heads when they saw that second pick Thresh. But Yamato and I were talking about it, and the whole goal was not only you taking that away from Kaiser, but you're also taking a strong 2v2 bot lane away, which means they can't play through their bot lane, which is what they're so accustomed to and what they find a lot of success with. So when you deny that away from this Mad Lion squad and you force them onto something like a Zilean, which, sure, okay, I kind of understand the logic behind it, but that's not what they find success on. Kaiser is really good at making plays. Kaiser is the person that sets up a lot of these opportunities for you, especially in the bot lane. So it feels like that this quick on the thinking and the Azir pick as well that Yamato was talking about, so many small things that look on paper strange, but a lot of it is very targeted. And then when you get into the second half, Mad is like running out of options and grasping for straws as they don't know where to take their draft next.
I think also on top of that, you know, we had the 3 bans from Fnatic's side onto that bottom side. I think we're at the point in time where a Senna ban has to come because Fnatic is just too flexible with it. And then I want to see a higher priority on Azir because Humanoid's champion pool is a bit smaller. With all these tanks in the picture, it's better to have Azir. But then again, Fnatic will adapt towards Azir too, so it's tricky for Mad Lions.
It is tricky for the Mad Lions, and it was always going to be, but we have to remember this was only game 1, and we've counted them out before, but they still have 4 games to prove what they are worth. However, it is Fnatic who come out on top with big control in that first game. Let's see if they can keep it up after the break.